Hi, I'm Espen Kraft, and today I'm going to show you how I record and mix and arrange my vocals, 80s style. I'm going to take you through my vocal chain, which plugins I use, how I use them, and I might even have a hardware unit stored away, so I'm going to show you how I hook up my external hardware to my DAW and use that to achieve my vocal sound.
Calling you on all stations, searching for affirmation. Oh, at night we all get lonely. At night, only you.
So let's get down to brass tacks here and see what's going on in my vocal chain. I've set up all my vocal parts in yellow, and we're going to focus on the first part of the song. And in the first verse I go solo at the beginning, and then come some unison parts, which makes my voice even more lush. And going up towards the break, I add some more lush unison voices, and then I go into some harmonies where the drums really start to take off. And I use a lot of different techniques to accomplish this, and we're going to go through it all now. That's the sampled voice of my friend Ted. I play it on the Roland S10. And here comes the first part of the verse.
Calling you on all stations, searching for affirmation.
Some hard pan unison voices.
Oh, at night we all get lonely. At night, only you.
And the break. And more hard panned unison voices. And now we do some harmonies. So let's take a closer look on what's going on, and let's start with the verse. I've chopped this up in bits, and I'm doing that to show you how the insert plugins can really smoothen out the track, even if there are some dynamic variations in the performance parts. So let's take a look at my chain here. I have some different plugins going as inserts, but I also have some send effects, auxiliary sends. Among them a reverb and something from the Eventide. And I also have some of the vocals sent out an auxiliary to do some parallel compression. But let's take a look at the chain of insert effects
Calling
first.
You on all stations, searching for affirmation. Oh, at night we all get lonely. At night, only you.
And usually I don't apply any auto-tuning or tuning on my lead vocal. I prefer to sing it in tune. And I have a tune plugin going, but it's muted at the moment. So let's turn off everything and listen to the dry sound first before we apply one-on-one of the insert plugins and the auxiliary sends to auxiliary plugins. And let's turn off the high passing on my voice as well, so everything is bone dry.
Calling you on all stations, searching for affirmation. Oh, at night we all get lonely. At night, only you.
And that's the bone dry lead vocals on the verse. And let's zoom that in, and you can see that one part
Searching for
is much louder than the part coming after it. And I could automate it or gain reduce it, but the compressors should really take care of this and make everything even in the end. So the first thing I do is I high pass some of my lead vocals with the built-in EQ of the DAW. I set it at around 130 Hertz.
calling you on all stations.
To take out some of the grunt in the lows. And then I start on my insert plugins and my chain. And I'll start with the Waves CLA2A plugin, emulator of the LA2A, and
Calling you on all stations.
I've set it up to take out little bits, but not much. And that's searching for phrase, make it going to overload, but if you don't hear anything, that's okay. But usually you don't want
We
that.
all get lonely.
So that's the initial compression, which evens out some of the vocals. But I use that in tandem with another plugin coming right after this, and that's the Waves SSL channel, the E channel. And this is pretty much the settings I always go for on my vocals, mind you.
Calling you on all stations.
Some of the edits on this vocal are pretty sloppy, and you hear some plops and some noises, but you also hear them when I turn the plugin on and off.
We all get lonely.
As I did before, I high pass even more here at the low end of my voice, and I also low pass a little bit. That's the split section of the plugin. I use a bell-shaped EQ, which takes a lot or boost a lot in this plugin. I boost a lot of the high frequencies, around 10-12 kilohertz. I take off some of the middle, low mids, and the low frequencies. And I use the gate section, not as a gate, but as an expander, because an expander is a lot smoother on the vocals. A gate, it's more like a on-off, but an expander is smoother, so I recommend using the expander mode for vocals. And the compressor is set up to squash out even more of the vocals to get it even and nice. I love this plugin, I use it on everything. And on the reverb, I have some Valhalla going, plate. I almost always use plates with a very long decay, or it's pretty long, and short pre-delay. And I high-cut a little bit of the reverb in the Valhalla itself. I have no EQ on the reverb besides of this.
On all stations, searching for affirmation.
And there's no gating on the reverb here. Let's move on. I also add a little bit of chorus on my vocals, or harmonizing if you like, because I use the Eventide H3000 factory plugin from Eventide. And it has one of the classic presets, 217 dual H910S harmonizers. And the 80s trick of thickening vocals is that you pitch shift left and right of the signal and delay it slightly.
Calling you on all stations, searching for
It's a little bit thicker with it on.
affirmation.
Not much, but just enough.
At night, we all get lonely. At night.
So a little bit of harmonizing, chorusing is mandatory for an 80s vocal track. And
Calling you
I rounded off with a de-esser also from Waves.
on all stations.
This is by far the best de-esser I know.
Searching for
I can see it takes a little bit,
affirmation.
around 5.5
At
kilohertz.
night, we all get lonely.
And to round this off as a really authentic 80s sounding vocals, I add some micro pitch slap from the H3000 as well. But on that one I use the hardware H3000, which I've now set up as a micro pitch slap echo.
Calling you on all stations, searching for
Now it's off.
affirmation.
And this adds a little slapback echo to the left and right, and both are pitched down and up to get that little thing going between left and right. But I also have this set up as an insert plugin, and you can see it's pitched down 9% on the left and right with an 11% slap. And I've raised the gain a little bit on this, and the mix is about 40%.
On all stations, searching for affirmation. Oh, at night,
That's the hardware.
calling you.
That's not as loud as the plugin, but I'll adjust that later and I'll come back to that in the tutorial. I also send some of the vocals out an auxiliary for some parallel compression, and not much, just a little bit. And on that channel I have the Waves CLA vocal plugin set up. And let's drag that out here from another screen, which my screen capture software don't see, but here it is. And I've set it up with a little bit of harmonizing as well, and some compression, quite a lot actually, and a boost in the high frequencies, and that's mixed in to taste.
Calling you on all stations, searching for.
And that channel I vary during the course of the mixing the song to get it exactly right.
At night, we all get lonely. At night, only you.
And at the end there, the second part of the verse, you can see those two new tracks coming in, which I've called vocals verse left and vocals verse right. So let's see what's going on there and why I've used those tracks to enhance the feeling towards the end of the verse part. And those two tracks use pretty much the same plugin chain as my verse, but let's hear it first.
At night, we all get lonely. At night, only you.
I always sing my parts, so there's no copying here, because copying a unison part will just make it face. So just sing it and it'll sound much more lush. I have more delay going on those two tracks, but the plugin chain is pretty much the same as on the verse. But both parts are panned hard, almost panned hard left and hard right. Don't pan it all the way to the left or all the way to the right, because there will be some bleeding in most DAWs into the other channel, but by setting it almost near the end, it'll be much cleaner pan-wise. And Also, remember to delay each part, one part ahead and one part late, because that'll also make the sound more lush, because it's panned hard and delayed slightly to both sides. I have no shame in using a little bit of tuning stuff on the underlaying harmonies or unison voices. In the 80s we would do that as well with the H3000 and the diatonic pitch shifting. But here let's use the best free software tuning plugin on market, the Auburn Sound Grayon 2. And I have the CLA2A compressor, I have the SSL channel, I have some micro-pitch slap on the unison sounds as well. And I use a little dash of the chorus from the H3000 plugin on the unison vocals as well. Again, a little trick I often utilize on these background unison voices is that I use different settings for the reverbs and delays for each track, because the little variations in the amount of reverb and delay will really make the tracks melt together as one and be very lush and beautiful once you play it all together. So use variation on the reverb and delay settings on those unison voices. Again, the Bionic Delay, a free delay plugin, very nice, and really no point in spending too much money on a delay when you can get this beautiful delay unit for free. Those tracks are not sent out for parallel compression, but I do high pass them, one more severely than the other, again to create a little variation that'll melt those together.
Oh, at night we all get lonely.
Let's turn that off and let's hear it dry. Just for comparison.
Oh, at night we all get lonely. At night, only you.
I often omit the D's and T's that ends words on harmonies and unison parts, because if you have a word ending with a T or a D, etc. on the lead vocals, that's enough. Doing that on all tracks will usually sound pretty hard and not very nice. So omit that.
Oh, at night we all get lonely. At night, only you.
Okay, moving on to the next part. Now the drums are starting to heat up. I have some whoas, very 80s. And since these fade out into the real drum part, I've added even more delay on those parts to really make them linger into the full horror of the drums and bass and everything. So another H3000 patch preset, a delay, quarter note delay. And these parts, vocals, are also nudged behind and ahead of the pulse. Again, to create that 80s lush chorused vocals. So as you can see, I vary the amounts of reverb and delays like I did on the unison parts before that. And I have high pass those as well. So it's pretty much the same techniques as I've showed you already. Again, those are sung, not copied. Not so nice dry. Shockingly bad, I would say. but it's all down to compression, EQ, and effects. And so we come to the Americana part, and here there are some harmonies. Let's hear those first.
Americana.
There's delay, alright.
Americana.
You can hear the tuning.
Whoa.
Pretty bad on the last one.
Americana.
Even more high passing, going higher and higher on the high pass frequency range. But you can't have too much bass or low end in those in such harmonies and unison voices, because everything will sound like mud. You have to take out a big chunk of the low end. There's no way around it, or it'll just sound bad.
Americana.
Some to the left, some to the right.
Americana. Americana.
Let's put all things back together.
Americana.
So there's not much bass or low end going on here, but like I said, you can't have it.
Americana.
Because there's plenty of bass in the track itself.
Whoa.
The last one there should be replaced, and it has been in the final version. So if you're going for this type of 80s style synth-pop vocal music, you really have to high pass and compress a lot to get those vocal sounds glued in with the instruments and being part of the overall sound. There's no coming around that. You have to be hard on the EQ and compression settings. And so far we've used only plugins for our vocal chain, and that's fine. But what I like to do is mix up some of the plugins with the actual hardware, and in this case the Eventide H3000. And let's hear the micro pitch slap echo from the hardware.
Calling you
And I'll exaggerate it a bit.
on all stations, searching for affirmation.
The plugin is very good, but I think the hardware unit has an edge in it's fuller in the sound. So let's see how we can record just the effect of the hardware and incorporate it into the arrangement window of my DAW to use it as an effect there. And to do that, I'll turn off everything going on the lead vocal in terms of plugins and onboard effects, and just have the hardware patched in. And by setting the auxiliary send of that channel or track to pre-fader like I'm doing here, you can take down or lower the master fader of that track, and by doing so you can monitor or record just the wet effect only, and that's what you want. So let's do that. I'll just check the plugin for delay compensation beforehand, which I'm doing now. And let's record that wet effect of the lead vocals on the verse. I'll just set the in and out point so I don't have to export the whole song. And I'll go to export and mix down this, and I'll give it a name, H3000 521 wet. 521 is that preset of the H3000, and I have to do a real-time export. This is not a plugin, so I can't render it out. I have to play through that part to be able to record it in real time. That's why it's worth paying attention to the CPU metering, because if you have buffer stutters or things like that, that will be recorded as well. So be sure you don't have that going. And I'll import it back to my project as an audio track, and I'll press export. I did it beforehand to test it out, so I just have to write over that file. And now it's exporting in real time.
Calling you.
And that's just the affected part.
On our station.
This is the effect you're hearing.
Searching for affirmation.
Remember, we'll bleed this in with the original later.
We all get lonely at night. Only you.
Okay, almost finished. And it's done. And now let's turn off the solo part and just mute that hardware patched in, because we have recorded it now on a separate track. And just drag that up and put it below the lead vocals. Let me just put everything back on here and put the fader up and everything on the lead vocal so we can hear how the plugin compares to the actual hardware recorded effect of the same preset. So let's turn the volume up on the master lead vocal track channel. And let's lower the fader of the affected track as well, because we're going to blend that in little by little later.
Calling you on all stations.
This is the plugin off.
Searching for
And now let's enable the recorded
affirmation.
hardware
Oh, at night.
from the beginning.
Calling you on all stations. Searching for affirmation. Oh, at night we all get lonely. Calling you on all stations. Searching for affirmation. Oh, at night we all get lonely. At night, only you.
And I can now, of course, high pass that affected wet track. I can put some
Calling you
delay on it as well if I want to, or
on all
reverb.
stations.
Let's put some reverb on
Searching
that.
for affirmation. Oh, at night we all get lonely. At night, only you.
So that's the way to record the wet effect of a hardware unit. And let's do it one more time, this time with the chorus, the other preset from the original hardware, the 217 preset, dual H90S harmonizers.
Calling you on all stations. Searching for affirmation.
So the effect is subtle, but it's very nice. Some chorusing, harmonizing,
Calling you
pitch shifting if you like. And this is the hardware unit set up to preset 217. And let's hear how that sounds.
calling you.
Let's compensate for the delay. That's a lot faster.
Calling you on all stations, searching for affirmation, calling you, calling you.
That's too much, of course, but we'll record it high, and we can lower that later when we mix that, blend that in with the original, like we did on the micro pitch slapback. So let's turn off everything on the lead vocal,
Calling you.
so we can be able to record that hardware chorus preset. Pre-fader, so we can turn down the volume of the lead vocals.
Calling you.
And hear only the affected result. And let's record that. Final adjustment of the delay compensation in the DAW. And we'll export that out. And this time it's the 217 preset we're recording. Wet. Let's call that Dual 910S. And again, it's a real-time export. We have to do that with hardware external effects. There's no other way, and we're recording.
Calling you on all stations, searching for affirmation. Oh, at night
I have some buffer
we all get
problems here.
lonely. At night
It's not just sloppy editing, it's some buffer thing going on in the system right now, but that's okay. And that is recorded. It's down where we can't see it. So let's turn on everything again on the lead vocal and drag that recorded wet effect up from the deep of the track list in the DAW here. There it is. Put that below the other track we recorded before. So now we have two wet effects going that we can blend in with the original. So let's hear that. A chorus and a micro pitch slap back echo.
calling you on all stations, searching for affirmation. Oh, at night we all get lonely. At night, only you, only you, only you, only you.
And ultimately it's just
only you,
going on until you find the right balance of effects
calling you
that suits the song you're
on
working
all
on.
stations,
I think the
searching for
hardware unit here is
affirmation.
fuller and richer than the plugin equivalent. Both are nice though, so it boils down to what you prefer. But I do this on every song I make. I go through this process, like now, on every song, each time.
Calling you on all stations, searching for affirmation. Calling you.
The way I record external effects into my DAW is by using the Audient ID22 sound card slash preamp. Very nice sounding, sounds very full and rich and deep in the sound. I love this sound card. It has a couple of outputs that goes to my speakers, but it also have another set of outputs, output 3 and 4, which I use for my sends, stereo send to my effects. and the return of that effect comes in on inputs 1 and 2. So going out of the audience, output 3 and 4, I have those balanced jacks going into the H3000's stereo inputs. And out of the H3000 come another pair of balanced jacks, which are going into the input 1 and 2 of the ID22. And now I can just adjust the recording gain level of input 1 and 2 on the ID22 itself. The procedure should be the same for any other sound card, of course. And we have to do something in the DAW itself, and as I'm using Nuendo or Cubase for any practical purpose, I'll show you how that's done here as well. And in the VST Connections window, we have a tab called External Effects, and I have one set up already, but that's a lexicon reverb. And now I'm going to set up a new one, and I add external effects, and I call that, in this case, the Eventide H3000. It's going to be a stereo send configuration and a stereo return configuration. I press OK, and this pops up, and if I expand that Eventide H3000, I have to set the physical connections for my send bus left and right, and that is the output 3 and 4, which we previously saw in the video. 3 and 4 sending the signal out as a send, and the return bus, it's input 1 and 2. And now we've set up the physical connections and the routing, and now we just have to enable that particular send effects in the DAW itself. And in Cubase, the way to do that is by adding another effects channel track and pick out under external plugins, which has now appeared, the one we've just set up, in this case the Eventide H3000, and I choose that, and I can just press OK on that one. And there's the delay compensation window, which we will use later when we actually use this effect. The send and return gain can just stay at 0, that's fine. Pressing the delay compensation button right now won't have any effect because we haven't set up any programs on the hardware unit yet. But now it's just a matter of choosing that external effects in any on any track as a send. And if I go into the sends on any given track, you can see I have some reverb going. But if I want to choose another effect or plugin, I now have, under the FX9, the Eventide H3000 hardware unit set up and patched in. And if I just enable that now, I can use that as any other plugin if I want to. And we always want to. Using that now is no different than using any other plugin. And that's how you set up external effects in Cubase and with an Audient sound card.
Whether you choose to capture the performance with an 80s vintage big capsule microphone costing thousands of dollars or a cheaper dynamic mic doesn't really matter. What matters is that you try to capture the essence of the vocals and the lyrics. Most of my tracks are recorded with a cheap AKG D5 dynamic microphone. It's suitable for my voice, it's perfect on my voice. So you don't have to use the most expensive microphone out there. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you found some tips and tricks you can use when you record your vocals or other people's vocals in your tracks. If you like what you see and like to see more, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I see you soon. Bye!